There's a lie we tell ourselves, that cities die from natural disasters, from war, from chaos. But the truth is darker. Cities are killed by the systems meant to save them, by bureaucrats who choose reputation over lives, by officials who bury warnings under paperwork, by the refusal to admit when everything is going wrong. Tonight, I'll show you two places destroyed by systems, not disasters. Pripyat, a city of 50,000 people, erased by 36 hours of silence. And the Aral Sea, the fourth largest lake in the world, drained to nothing in 40 years. Different continents, different decades, different disasters, but the same pattern, the same systemic failure, the same refusal to stop when the damage was clear. This is not just history. This is a warning. Because right now, somewhere, another system is making the same choice, and another city's clock is ticking. Pripyat was born on February 4th, 1970. A Soviet model city, modern, clean, built for the future. 50,000 people lived here, nuclear engineers and their families. The average age was 26. This was a young city, an optimistic city. Wide boulevards, apartment blocks painted in bright colors, a central square with cafes and shops. Children went to school in the mornings. Families walked by the river in the evenings. There was an amusement park under construction, set to open on May 1st, 1986, for International Workers' Day. The centerpiece was a bright yellow Ferris wheel. Children couldn't wait to ride it. 3 kilometers away stood the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. 4 massive reactors, the pride of Soviet engineering. Pripyat existed because of Chernobyl. The plant employed nearly half the city. It was their livelihood, their identity, their future. And on April 25th, 1986, it was just another ordinary day. Families ate dinner, children did homework, people made plans for the weekend. No one knew that night would be their last in the city they called home. At 1:23 a.m. on April 26th, reactor number 4 exploded. Engineers had been running a safety test, testing what would happen if the power failed. But the test went catastrophically wrong. A power surge, an uncontrolled reaction, a series of explosions. The reactor core was exposed, burning, releasing radiation into the night sky. The explosion was so powerful, it blew the 1,000-ton reactor lid off its housing. Flames shot 300 meters into the air. The radiation released was 400 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. But in Pripyat, just 3 kilometers away, people heard nothing. Some saw a strange glow in the sky. A few felt a tremor, but most slept through it all. When the sun rose on April 26th, they woke up to a normal Saturday morning. Children went outside to play. Families planned picnics. Life continued, because the system told them everything was fine. But everything was not fine. The air they breathed was poisoned. The ground they walked on was radioactive. Every breath, every step, every moment was dangerous. Soviet officials knew this. Within hours, they knew the scale of the disaster. But they said nothing. No evacuation, no warning, no alarm. Why? Because admitting the disaster meant admitting the system had failed, and the Soviet system could not fail. For 36 hours, 50,000 people lived in a radioactive death zone. Children played in contaminated playgrounds. Families ate contaminated food. Brides got married in contaminated wedding halls. Radiation detectors were off the scale, but officials ordered them turned off. Firefighters who responded to the blaze were already dying, their skin burned, their organs failing. Still, the system said nothing. Pripyat's Communist Party leaders debated. Moscow officials deliberated, not about how to save lives, but about what to admit, what to hide, how to control the narrative. Meanwhile, invisible death filled the air. On April 27th, 36 hours after the explosion, the order finally came. At 2 p.m., 1,200 buses rolled into Pripyat. Loudspeakers announced the evacuation. Dear comrades, due to the accident at the Chernobyl power plant, the radioactive conditions are unfavorable. The Communist Party is taking necessary measures. Take your documents, some food, and clothing. You will return in 3 days. 3 days. That's what they were told. 50,000 people left their apartments, left their photographs, left their lives. They took only what they could carry. They never returned. The buses drove them to Kiev, to Minsk, to villages far away, and Pripyat became a ghost. Today, Pripyat stands frozen in time. The amusement park that was supposed to open on May 1st never welcomed a single child. The yellow Ferris wheel rusts in silence. Schools have textbooks still open on desks. Apartments have dishes still in sinks. A city interrupted mid-sentence. Nature has reclaimed what humans abandoned. Trees grow through buildings. Wolves roam the streets. Birds nest in broken windows. The radiation will remain dangerous for another 20,000 years. But Pripyat's real tragedy is not measured in radiation levels. It's measured in the 36 hours of silence, in the bureaucrats who chose reputation over lives, in the warnings ignored, the truths buried, the people sacrificed. Pripyat was not destroyed by an explosion. It was destroyed by a system that refused to admit it was wrong. And that system didn't die with the Soviet Union. It's alive. It's global. It's repeating. 6,000 kilometers east of Pripyat lies another grave. But this grave is 3 times the size of Belgium. The Aral Sea, or what used to be the Aral Sea. In 1960, it was the 4th largest lake in the world. 68,000 square kilometers of blue water in the heart of Central Asia. Fishing boats dotted its surface. Towns thrived on its shores. 40,000 people made their living from fishing. Sturgeon, carp, bream. The lake fed rivers, cooled the climate, brought rain to the desert. It was called the Sea of Islands because it held over 1,000 small islands. Children swam in its waters. Couples walked its beaches. For millions of years, 2 great rivers fed the Aral Sea, the Amu Darya from the south, the Sir Darya from the northeast. The balance was perfect. Water flowed in, water evaporated, the lake remained. But in 1960, Soviet planners had a vision that would kill the sea. The plan was ambitious: transform the deserts of Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan into cotton empires, make the Soviet Union the world's largest cotton exporter, turn barren land into an agricultural superpower. There was just one problem. Cotton needs water, massive amounts of water. So Soviet engineers designed a network of canals, thousands of kilometers of canals to divert the 2 rivers away from the Aral Sea. The water that had fed the sea for millennia would now feed cotton fields. Scientists warned this would be catastrophic. The sea would shrink. The ecosystem would collapse. The climate would change. But the warnings were dismissed. The plan was too important. The goals too ambitious. The system too committed. In 1960, the canals opened, and the Aral Sea began to die. At first, the death was slow. The water level dropped a few centimeters each year. Fishing boats had to travel farther to reach the water. Beaches extended. Shores receded. But the cotton plan was working. Production soared. The Soviet Union became one of the world's largest cotton exporters. And so the system continued, year after year, canal after canal. More water diverted, less water reaching the sea. The Aral Sea shrank and shrank and shrank. By 1970, the sea had lost 10% of its volume. By 1980, 20%. Fishing towns that once sat on the shore found themselves 15 kilometers inland. Boats sat stranded in the sand. Fishermen watched their livelihoods disappear. But the system did not stop, because stopping meant admitting the plan had failed. And the plan could not fail. By 1987, the Aral Sea had split into two separate bodies of water, the North Aral and the South Aral. By 1990, the fishing industry was dead. 40,000 jobs, gone. Towns abandoned. Communities destroyed. But the damage went far beyond economics. The sea had acted as a climate regulator. It cooled the air in summer, warmed it in winter, brought rain to the desert. Without the sea, temperatures became extreme. Summers grew hotter, winters colder. Rain stopped, and then came the dust. As the seabed dried, it exposed 68,000 square kilometers of toxic sediment, decades of agricultural runoff, pesticides, fertilizers, industrial waste, all now exposed to the wind. Dust storms began, carrying poison across the region. Salt, chemicals, heavy metals. People breathed it. Crops absorbed it. Water became contaminated. Cancer rates soared. Tuberculosis spread. Infant mortality climbed. Throat cancer, liver disease, kidney failure. An entire generation poisoned by the dust of a dead sea. By 2009, the South Aral Sea had almost completely vanished. What was once the fourth largest lake in the world was now scattered puddles in a toxic desert. Today, you can walk across the floor of the Aral Sea. Where water once reached 30 meters deep, there is only sand. Rusted hulls of fishing ships sit in the desert like tombstones, ghost ships in a ghost sea. The towns that remain are dying. Children grow up with chronic respiratory disease. Life expectancy has dropped. The water that people drink is contaminated. The air they breathe is poisoned. And the cotton? The cotton still grows. Uzbekistan remains one of the world's largest exporters. The system achieved its goal, but it destroyed an entire sea, ruined millions of lives, created an environmental catastrophe that will last centuries. The Aral Sea was not destroyed by drought. It was not destroyed by climate change. It was destroyed by a system that valued short-term production over long-term consequences. A system that refused to stop, even when the damage was undeniable. A system that chose cotton over water, plans over people, ideology over reality. And the terrifying truth? That system is still making decisions today. Pripyat and the Aral Sea. Different disasters, different systems, different continents, but the same story. Systems that refuse to admit failure. Officials who chose silence over truth. Bureaucracies that valued reputation over human life. In Pripyat, 50,000 people lived in a radioactive death zone for 36 hours because admitting the disaster was more terrifying than the disaster itself. At the Aral Sea, an entire ecosystem was destroyed over 40 years because stopping the plan meant admitting it was wrong. These are not ancient tragedies. Pripyat happened in 1986. The Aral Sea dried up in our lifetime, and the pattern continues. In Flint, Michigan, officials switched the water supply to save money. 100,000 people drank lead-contaminated water for 18 months, while officials denied there was a problem. In Bhopal, India, a pesticide factory ignored safety warnings to cut costs. 40 tons of toxic gas leaked. 15,000 people died in a single night. The systems change. The names change. The locations change. But the pattern remains. Warnings ignored. Truth buried. Reputation prioritized over lives. Because the greatest threat to any system is not external disaster. It's admitting the system itself is failing. And so the warnings are silenced. The data is hidden. The whistleblowers are punished. Until it's too late. Until the city is evacuated. Until the sea is gone. Until lives are destroyed. Cities don't fall in a single day. They fall one ignored warning at a time, one bureaucratic delay at a time, one prioritized reputation at a time. Pripyat stands empty. The Aral Sea is dust. But somewhere right now, another system is making the same choice. Another warning is being buried. Another clock is ticking. The question is not if it will happen again. The question is where and when. And most importantly, will we recognize the pattern before it's too late? This is just 2 stories in a series about systemic failures. If you want to see more, subscribe to this channel, because understanding these patterns might be the only way to break them.